Hey everybody, Mike Flores here with another Berlin LCQ qualifying deck list. This time it's a build of Fairies by Jorge Pinazzo. If you're lucky enough to be completely unfamiliar with Fairies, you're very lucky. Fairies has been a kind of boogeyman on Standard since the printing of Bitter Blossom last year. Bitter Blossom is unbelievably strong in this strategy for two reasons. First of all, Fairies is a control deck, and with Bitter Blossom, the Fairies player can tap 2 mana on turn 2, and then sit back and never tap mana on his own turn ever again. Bitter Blossom just makes a steady stream of threat tokens forever, so the control player will not typically have to commit mana to board position, but instead sit back waiting to play Cryptic Command. Secondly, Bitter Blossom is Fairy stamped. It is a Fairy enchantment, which is extremely important because that makes it eligible to be championed by the other primary threat in the deck, Mistbind Click. The Click is basically a 4/4 time walk that can be played at any time, even during combat, to defend Fairies or just ruin the opponent's day. Usually it gets played during upkeep so as to steal an entire turn. The Fairy stamp on Bitter Blossom has been the bane of many a player trying to use Cloud Thresher to prevent all heck from breaking loose. Sometimes it even matters when the opponent has a Wispmare or Disenchant of some kind. Scion of Una appears to flip Bitter Blossom absolutely Autumn Willow. This deck has a couple of unique tuning decisions. There is ample flexibility in the Fairy strategy outside the core cards of Bitter Blossom, Mistbind Click, and Spellstutter Sprite, but Jorge was very creative in his liberties. See, he actually hybridized a wizard sub-theme to the deck. Noticing that Mistbind Click, Spellstutter Sprite, and Vendilion Click were wizards, he actually added a Merfolk card, Stonybrook Banneret, and the generally Merfolk stamp permission spell Sage's Dowsing to the Fairies list. Given his fair amount of wizards, that's almost like doubling the dismiss count in the deck, which is really clever because most players fail to agree about whether Broken Ambitions is any good, or if they should try Negate, Remove Soul, or whatever. So before we move on to gameplay, just keep in mind that in addition to this LCQ victory, Fairies won a recent Cruise qualifier and was far and away the most decorated deck of the summer's block constructed format. A lot of people are doing a lot of jawing about cruel control for states, but I think that if you're not expecting a top Fairies turnout, you're kidding yourself. We're going to reveal our Vendilion Click to put Secluded Glen into play untapped. I wanted to play this way because I wanted to play Thoughtseize on the first turn. I'm going to take Muldrifter over Cryptic Command because it denies him action. Plus, our Click should be fast enough to deal with his Cryptic. We actually can play around the Cryptic now that we know about it. We follow up with a Ponder. These are all decent cards, but they're not doing anything for us right now. We know his cards, and Spellstutter Sprite is not going to deal with any of them. He rips and has a Thoughtseize back, which is probably going to take our Click. Yup, good move. But we are Luxax and top deck a Bitter Blossom, which I'm guessing he would have taken if he had the opportunity. This time we ponder into Spellstutter Sprite, and it is a lot better because we're going to have the expectation of 3 to 4 Fairies, even just next turn thanks to Bitter Blossom. The beauty of Bitter Blossom in the control matchup is that you never have to tap mana to get threats into play. Look at how marginal his Cryptic Command has become. We actually will have enough Fairies to counter it for only 2 mana before he can play it. As many control matches are wont to do, basically neither of us is doing anything. But luckily, even though I'm not doing anything, my Bitter Blossom continues to make these threats, which is what makes it so significant in so many matchups, especially against a control deck. So the next move of the game occurs when he turns a Fairy token. There's no reason to fight that. He's obviously playing this as a kind of blink combo with his Muldrifters, but it works here too. So we move to attack, and he has a dastardly plan to waylay our Fairy token with a makeshift mannequin from Muldrifter, which would be pretty good in this spot. But we can easily deploy the Spellstutter Sprite for a 2-for-1 against the mannequin, so that's what we do. So he's turning here just to preserve his life total, but we can really showcase the synergy of a linear deck. We have the Scion of Una, which is going to effectively counter his removal spell. He's going to try to follow up with the Agony Warp from turn 1, but here Jorge's version really gets to showcase its synergy. Spellstutter Sprite is a wizard, so we get another 2-for-1 on the Agony Warp. Plus our Scion of Una is pumping our guys to twice the strength. Maybe he was trapping me because here comes a reversal of fortunes. Sower of Temptation taking Scion of Una is one of the most underrated plays against Fairies. Now he has a giant defensive wall because we can't target the Sower, but it's a 3/3. Whatever. He's on 10 and we are mostly all in on attack. He moves to block. We aren't getting the full value of Mistbind Click, but this is a nice open to get our 4/4 flyer into play while his mana is tapped. Plus, we get to kind of save our Spellstutter sprite. At least there is no short-term loss of attack fairies because we are championing a sunk cost. A little more back and forth, but with our Vendilion Clique taking his Cryptic command, the next attack or two are more than good enough to earn the concession. Did you see how Faeries was able to use the flash on Mistbind Clique to deploy a 4/4 with damage on the stack? Flash on Scion of Una to punish the opponent for using instant speed removal during combat? Not to frighten you over much, but if you want to succeed at states, make sure you have a plan for Faeries. Either way, good luck this weekend. This has been Mike Flores with the Standard States video. I hope you enjoyed it.